Welcome, guys, to a look back at the 2021 NFL Draft. We are going to be going division by division, and as a little disclaimer, this will be posted at the front of every video. We are not professionals. We did not spend the past 3 months looking at game film and watching each and every one of these players and finding out exactly what they do. We did a lot of stat sheet picking, and that can lead to inaccurate grades sometimes. Not only that, but as it was over 3 months and it was our first attempt at ever grading draft picks, we got better as we went on, so the earlier grades may be less cohesive than the later grades, but we're still hoping to do a pretty good job and enlighten y'all. Maybe just take a look back at all the picks in this draft, see where some of these players went and what happened to them as well. But yeah, let's get into it, starting with the NFC South with the Falcons.
So starting off the Falcons, number one, number one round, pick four, we got Kyle Pitts. He's very interesting. It's a total of 2 seasons for him. First season, an absolute game changer for the Falcons. Made the Pro Bowl.
Was
We'll get
allergic to
into
the
the
red
stats
zone
in a
in the
second.
end zone.
But yeah, couldn't score, but um, he he made the difference, and he made the Pro Bowl, and he was a real shining light on their entire offense. And then year two took a quite a nosedive where he suffered injuries, so you can account for that all you want. And my rebuttal to your excuses of his injury is that he was still only on pace for 600 yards, so it's not the same top end uh, tight end talent that he had showed the year prior. But I'm interested to see what you think.
So the other thing we gotta take a look at is who is throwing him the ball, and when the name starts with Marcus and ends with Mariota, you gotta make a little bit of an exception. He definitely did take a step back, and it's not something that you ever like to see. But when you're going from Matt Ryan to Mariota,
Yeah,
obviously you're going to take a step down, even if it's an aging Matt Ryan who isn't that good anymore. Um, but yeah, I blamed shoddy QB play and injury in his second year. Um, but his ceiling is through the roof. He's 6'6". He runs super fast. He's got hands. He's got all the skills. He just needs a
if
new
he
offense
sticks
and a
his
new
hands
coach.
up fast enough, they literally go through the ceiling. So I
Oh,
agree with you on that one.
I
You
gave
got
Kyle Pitts a
B
B.
minus.
Um, I give him a B. I liked his rookie year, and I think he can get back to it. Um, you said B minus.
I think, yeah, it's you got the rookie year and you got the second year, and uh, we could change it up. I could go up, but
I
uh,
I'm okay going
he
down. I'm okay with it, just
that tight
because it's what he's done so far. You can project into the future all you want. I'm okay with a B minus for Pitts.
end. Yeah, I think B minus mostly because he's a tight end. The positional value isn't there at pick number four, especially when there was quarterbacks on the board that would have stopped them from having Marcus Mariota throwing the ball. So moving forward, we got round two, pick 40, Richie Grant, DB. Thoughts?
Um, well, I think it's really easy to see him being picked before Asante, and think that that's not good. But Richie Grant is a little bit more versatile, so he has played safety and corner, um, whereas Asante's a pure corner. Um, and then Grant did very well. He was, let me pull up his actual stats so I don't misquote. But
Yeah, he had played 100% of snaps his second year, and I think that is just you make a transition at position and become a strong safety, and you just kind of you excel in that role, and I think that's certainly a more of a bonus than it is a knock that he had to change position.
yeah, and especially when you go, I mean, you go from playing in 16 games and starting none of them. You've got a couple decent tackle numbers, 35 total at DB in his rookie year, 2 passes defended, and then you start 17 games and you have 7 passes defended, and you've got 123 total tackles, which is just an absurd number for any
That was
position,
scary.
especially safety.
Yes,
Um,
like linebackers, you would maybe expect that. Safeties, a little less so.
I think
That's an absurd number.
I think Foyesade Oluokun led the league in combined tackles, and it was like up in the 160, 170s, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. Um, and so to be a DB and to put up over 100 is just nuts. Um, I personally had him at a B. I would be willing to go up a little bit on that just because the tackle numbers. I didn't mention them, but uh, very good.
Yeah, I think B plus range because you have a player that taken in the second round and he doesn't get to start as a rookie. But then his second year is just fantastic. And there's only so much weight you can put behind. Well, he wasn't a starter. He only played in the games. He's still getting the snaps. He's still getting like to see the field.
And
And
he's learning the system as well, which is some of the most important
yes,
stuff for rookies. Is just hey, get
so
yourself on the field, learn the system, get better.
yeah, yeah. I'm between B and B plus. So
I'll
up to
lean
you
B
on that one.
plus. I'll lean B plus. I like him
Okay.
as a player. Um, but
Yeah.
next we got Mr. Mid himself, Jalen Mayfield. Um, and as our first offensive lineman that we're grading, I will go ahead and throw the disclaimer out there. Once again, we did not watch game film for every single one of these players, especially not the O linemen. Um, they're tough to grade. PFF has a number grade on them, but we tried to stray away from using PFF just a little bit, just because it's not always the most accurate. It's a useful tool, but it's never something that I would base an entire like opinion on. So
Yeah.
we kind of gave it a little bit of backing, but nothing too crazy. Um, but the downside for him is that he missed the entire 2022 season with a back injury. So
Yes. And that's not a I wouldn't even say that's the biggest knock on him. Biggest knock on him for me is as a rookie, he allowed the most sacks at his position and a position of the O line. Um, that's just not like it's understandable for a rookie that's making that adjustment to the league, but you have that, and then you have stacked on top of that he he definitely wasn't ready. He came in to start because of an injury, and he didn't really excel at the guard position, and so then you couple that with an injury riddled second year. I can't go anything higher than D plus.
um, I'm leaning D. The only like thing that would make me push plus is that um, he was in the third, but still third round is still day two, so you're still looking
Yeah,
for players that are going to make a difference. And he did play tackle in college, and moving O line,
yeah,
very easy
the
thing to do on
adjustment.
Madden. Swap their positions and they're great, but in real life, adjustment is very difficult. Even like tackle to tackle position swaps are tough. Um,
Yeah.
from left to right, and so if
Mhm.
you're being plugged in everywhere on the O line, obviously you're going to have a couple issues, but still, I think a D is where I'm sitting at on him.
Yeah. Um, he's. I think they definitely would have preferred he not start his rookie year and
For
have
sure,
that year to learn the guard as opposed to be on the field learning the guard. And
definitely.
so then you were coming into a year three with him, which is technically a year two since injury, and who knows how that's going to look. So it's even harder to project out in the future, like, oh, he's going to get better. We don't know that.
Yeah, especially
So
coming off a
moving
back injury
forward,
too. But yeah,
yeah,
fourth round, pick 108, Darren Hall, a DB. My notes on him are basically that the Falcons are just good at drafting solid talent. He's nothing crazy, but he was solid. He's defended 3 passes each year, which is again nothing crazy,
yeah,
but an additional little stat that 45 total tackles his second season from the cornerback position, not from a safety position. So you got a little bit fewer opportunities to get those tackles, and
yeah.
he's still doing it. So
I think when you look at as a duo, having Richie Grant and having Darren Hall in this draft, a major plus for them because you have Darren Hall who, yeah, he doesn't have any interceptions, but that's not a DB stat. Um, he, I would consider him just not, not mid. I'm not gonna diss the guy like that, but he's he's decent. He's a
mm-hmm.
good starter to have, and you don't want to fall into a place where you're not gonna have a decent starter. You don't want to have AJ Terrell get hurt and not have someone to step in. and he would be the guy that they have step in and maybe not excel, maybe not put AJ Terrell to shame. No one's going to do that.
He's never
Um,
going to be AJ Terrell, but he's definitely going to
yeah,
be a solid replacement, solid plug and play guy, solid even CB2. He'd be solid there.
yeah.
Um, so I've got a B on him, and I feel pretty solid about that.
My issue is only like his catch percentages are pretty darn high, both over 70. Um, but there's so much that goes into that, and it's there can be wide receiver matchups just unfavorable for him. Could be a lot of things. I'm
That's
gonna go B, maybe B minus.
fully
Yeah.
okay with that.
Moving forward, we have also in the fourth round, just 6 picks later at 114, Drew Dolman, the center, drafted for them. He's
Um,
interesting.
he's very interesting. He didn't start a game in his rookie year. He played 68 snaps in his rookie year, um, and then going into year two, he became the full-time starter and started 100% of snaps. So
Yeah,
um, he did have 9 penalties, which is a lot, and especially for a
yeah.
center. But
Fourth most at the position.
yeah,
It's nothing to brag about.
and it's
Um,
definitely a knock on him. My only like justifier for that is that he's on the Falcons, and the Falcons are such a run-heavy team that he's going to be out in space a lot, making those big man blocks where he's taking on linebackers, and linebackers are fast. And if you're a big center and you're making a block on a linebacker and he's just like swimming past you, you're gonna
yeah,
you're gonna grab.
you have to hold it. Something is gonna give. Um, I think that I gave him a C initially. I'm not so sure on the value at that and in the fourth round. How I feel about the value of that center and being able to start 100% of the snaps year two.
I think that the other thing is the lack of starts year one. That it's just like a
Yeah.
you know he'll polish the
At the
penalties
same
and he'll be
time,
solid.
it could have been more like, okay, how they were feeling about Jalen Mayfield. Jalen
Yeah,
Mayfield's making a positional switch. We want him to have a backup, want him to learn the system. And that could have been what they were doing true. He didn't have to come up and start. He got to sit. He came and started fully his second year. So it wasn't like there was any indecision on the decision to start him.
yeah.
So
Um,
I had another C. Where were you sitting?
I had him at a B plus actually. I will definitely go down to I think a B minus is more accurate for that. The penalties are tough to look
Okay.
past.
Yeah,
But
it's tough to look past the penalties when he was so high on them out of all centers.
yeah, um, but yeah, I think B minus is good just because like even though center positional value isn't great, it's the fourth round. If you're getting a guy that's starting 1,000+ snaps for you in a season, that's good value. I don't care what position it's at.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, moving forward, we've got fifth round pick 148 to Quan Graham, D lineman. He has no sacks. He has 3 TFLs. Um, he started in 14 games over 2 seasons, and as a fifth round pick, that's sometimes more than you can ask for. But I got him. I'm not that favorable on him.
I'm not that high on him either. He's more depth with those 780 total snaps. And obviously you're not drafting starters in the fifth round. So I think that he fills his role. He doesn't go above. He might be a little bit below, but I'm currently feeling like a C minus.
I've got a straight C on him, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think sticking to that C, it's nothing. He was the second most like on field D tackle they had. So it's kind of just he gives that backup value, and he's in the fifth round. So I think the C is good there.
Yeah. Um, Next up, also in the fifth round, pick 182, we got Adetokunbo Ogundeji, outside linebacker. It's super easy to compare the two, Taekwon and Ogundeji, because out of the draft, they are both listed as D line, and Ogundeji has a lot better stats. But Ogundeji made the switch to outside linebacker where he has done fairly well. He started 16 games for him last season at outside linebacker. He only has 3 sacks in his career, but uh, I mean, out of a fifth rounder, I think that's all right.
Yeah, it's I think the biggest plus for him is he's a fifth rounder and he's starting the games. Um, he's getting all the snaps, he's getting all the like time on the field to grow and have that like chance, the opportunity to develop. And so coming into the later rounds, that's all you really want is you want the developmental guys that could start for you. And he made sure he was starting for them right off the bat.
And the only real knock that I can have on him is that on their current depth chart, he is listed as the backup weak side linebacker. Um, but
Mm.
you know, positions on depth charts
That's
change all the
nothing to
time.
use to grade his first 2 years as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Um,
And we're
that's
not
something
even in
to
preseason
consider
yet.
when
So
you're looking forward, but right now it's for grading the past 2 years. I think it's um, safe to say he's gone above where he was drafted. He's been more productive than the person that was drafted to this team directly before him, and I would go B minus for him.
I was at C plus B minus, so I'll go up to B minus for him. I'm okay with that. And then next we got
Good.
a gadget player listed as a bunch of different positions, but in the end, he's just a kick returner. Avery Williams picked 1 pick after Ogundeji. Um, he's okay. He's a gunner and a kick returner, and he's mediocre at both. He's an okay running back in his limited touches, and initially I liked him a little bit initially just because he was that weird gadget player, but the positional value just isn't there.
Yeah, it's it's iffy. It's hard to grade. It was a late fifth, so it's I'd argue more of a sixth round kind of return gadget player pickup. He was good at returning kicks, so despite the like value of you're getting a gadget return man, at least it's a good one. So I would go C plus. I could probably settle on just C flat.
I was at B minus, but looking back on him, I think C plus C flat looks good. So I'll leave that decision up to you. What you want to do?
We'll just go C plus because he did actually get carries at running back. He did actually average 5 yards carry. It wasn't on much. It was probably only one game, or maybe they tried him a handful of times in different games. But
The
um,
Falcons were just a like a revolving mess of running backs, and it led to
yes,
it was successful. They were very successful, and don't get me wrong, but um, yeah, I don't
looking
I don't
forward, moving forward again, just a few picks this time into the sixth round. We have Frank Darby, who has been a practice squatter, wide receiver. He's gotten 40 or 74 snaps and gotten 2 catches, 29 yards, one for 14, one for 15. I'm feeling D flat.
I
Can't go
am
D minus. That seems disrespectful.
I am
D
feeling D
flat.
flat as well.
Yes,
In the
because
sixth round, you kind of it's it's not expected that the players are going to be not good, but it's kind of a foregone conclusion. You can't ask too much
it's
out of
a
these
prove
guys. So
yourself spot. You have
yeah,
to get the time. You have to you have to dig yourself out of that hole. You're not expect. There's no expectations on you.
yeah. Um, and then overall, as a grade, I had a B minus on them. Um, I they drafted some solid talent. They had a lot of Bs, um, but I could see I can see people not liking this draft class just because Pitt's for fourth overall tight end who hasn't really produced a ton, um, reliably at least. It could be a reach, and then they missed on a fair few, especially in the you know earlier picks. You could call Pitts a miss. Jalen Mayfield was a miss, and then the rest of the draft they
I
were
think
solid.
calling it a miss would be a bit premature because
I think so
it's
too, but I
that's
mean,
how tight ends play. But yeah, devil's advocate could be a miss, sure. Um, I graded them total overall as a B. Um, I think that's fitting because they got a lot of Bs from us.
yeah.
Granted, a lot of B minuses, but they're still making it into B. I could lower it to B minus though.
I so when I draft or when I grade the individual players, I'm grading the player with a little bit of hint on the position, and then when I grade the overall team, if they hit on a lot of their later round picks, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and I'll bump their grade up a little bit, which is
Yeah,
why I'm leaning B instead of B minus.
um
Uh,
unlike some teams we're going to be looking at later today, uh, they didn't end up cutting most of their draft. So I'll stick with my B. And yeah, they really did. They found a lot of solid starters, a lot of defensive additions, I'd say.
and
You have Drew and you have Kyle, but uh, I think defensively this draft made them a lot better.
I think that they're building the right way. I think they're building up a team, and when they throw a quarterback in it, I think right now they're sneaky like Jets last year, where they've got like
Hmm.
talent everywhere except quarterback. Um,
Yeah, they need a decent quarterback.
Alrighty, and then next up in the NFC South is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Um, they were just coming off a Super Bowl victory, so their picks are later in the rounds that they picked in. But um, starting off, we got Joe Tryon Shoyinka, outside linebacker, at 32. The value there is, you know, what are you really going to get out of the last pick of the first round? It's basically a second round pick, um, and he's not a top tier edge rusher, but he's not a pure edge rusher. He's got a lot of off ball linebacker in him. He's got a lot of coming out in coverage off of the like D line, and he's got some solid stats. 4 sacks, 14 QB hits are the main ones, and then he's got the availability starting 16 games last season. So I quite
Yeah,
like
I
him.
think his biggest factor for me when I was grading was his pure versatility. He's a player that they can move all around, and I think that when they were moving into year two with Tom Brady, that the defense was definitely a focus to really make sure they kept good because Tom Brady likes his defenses to be top 10, and Joe Tryon was kind of a step in the right direction there. They have a versatile linebacker. They can kind of pair with Devin White, and he has no big expectations because he has Devin White to rely on there. But I really liked him a lot too. I gave him a B.
I gave him a B as well. He's not that like top end talent that you give an A to, but he's definitely um, performed at least to his expectations as a first round pick. Um,
Yeah,
not the
and that fringe first round pick
yeah,
too.
not the highest talent ever, but also you're not getting the best first round pick. It's the last one of the first round, so I'm okay with the pick. I'm very okay with the pick actually. Um, but next
As we
up,
move off
uh,
of the uh, great player,
uh,
uh,
Kyle Trask.
the Kyle Trashcan quarterback picked at 62. He's he did not live up to any hype. Immediately after the draft, there was like, oh, he's gonna be, coach. He's gonna be learning from Tom Brady, the successor.
Yeah.
Nah,
Um,
um,
we haven't seen him yet,
I'm
so
shocked he's still on the roster
you know what? That's fair. Um,
because
but who else did they got? Baker.
it's yeah, they got Baker. Baker's gonna start, and Kyle Trask probably isn't even making a attempt at that uh, competition they're gonna have. He really barely played at all.
So
But
I
when he did play, he could not complete the ball at all.
yeah
It
he
was
was
3 for 9, and the average depth of target was 1 yard.
just
So just one. It wasn't the best. Hey, throw him in. Let's see what he can do. It was not the best showing for that.
yeah. Um,
I
I
gave him a D.
so I had him at a C only because we haven't seen what he can do. Um, and then after I graded this, the video of him and Baker Mayfield overthrowing at training camp came out, and I have since decided that he does not deserve a C, and so I will agree with the D there.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially when you're overthrowing Mike Evans. How you throw that over his head,
yeah,
out
he's
of reach.
it's a little tough to do. But moving swiftly onward,
Mm,
as fast as we can away from Kyle Trask, please. We've got Robert Hainsey. He's a solid O lineman. He started over 1,100 snaps and didn't allow a single sack. only had 2 penalties, and was a third round pick. I don't really know what more you can ask out of a third round pick, even if it is a center, um, like a little bit of a lower positional value pick. But still, I like the pick.
Yeah. I think when we're going through this division specifically, a lot of centers that we don't think so highly of, but Robert Haynes is not one of them. He earned his job from Ryan Jensen, I believe. Um, he took the job, earned it, and continued to just play consistent ball, not allow sacks. And yeah, not allowing sacks should be easy as a center, but sometimes it happens. And he didn't even let it happen at all.
I have some news that may affect our grading of him that has just come up. Um, Not like current event news, but Ryan Jensen is actually ahead of him on the depth chart. Um,
Yeah.
he was out due to injury, I believe, last season, so Hainsey started and he was good. But that doesn't mean that Hainsey can't shift over to one of the guard positions and do okay there. I still like the pick.
Or
It's still a good pick.
it's not even preseason. Depth charts aren't set. He
True, true.
very well could just gain that back.
That
Um,
it's still true. I had him graded at an A. I know you want to reserve the A's for players that are just absolute studs. But I really do like the pick.
yeah,
Nearing the
I
end
would
of the
lean
third
more
round.
A minus. It's a bit hard though, given the new news of sorry, shout out to the Kelseys. Um, that he might not be the starter, but we're good in the past 2 years. He played fantastic when he was. I will go A minus.
A minus sounds good to me. Then we go to Jalen Darden, uh, basically average return man. Fourth round pick, didn't make it to the end of the season, his second season with the team that drafted him. Waived and went to the Browns. He was a very good punt returner, and that is the only reason I did not give him an F. Um, he actually doubled
Yeah,
the league average on punt returns when he was with the Bucks, um, and
yeah,
then
that's
was
wild.
inexplicably just waived. So
They traded up to draft him, and they traded up at the cost of a sixth round, and they still didn't keep him around. So when you're essentially using two picks to not keep a player, it's it's not looking good.
and
And
especially
I'm gonna
a player that you drafted as a return man in the fourth round, it's just not a good look. I've got a D
yeah,
on him. I think that's fair.
yeah. D minus could be applicable, but
I like
I
his
think
above
we'll
average punt returning, so I'm gonna
yeah.
stick at D.
It's the the organization did terribly. He didn't, so we'll stick to just the D.
Going to the fifth round, you got KJ Britt, linebacker. Um,
He really hasn't seen the field, and so he's got those 73 snaps under his belt, and that's all we got to go off.
yeah,
It's hard to give him many praises. I think this one's kind of just like an inconclusive.
for most of the players that I was inconclusive on, I tended to give them close to a C minus if what they had done was bad, and a C plus if what they had done was good. But if it was truly inconclusive, if they just truly had not had the snaps, and when they did have the snaps, they were fairly mediocre. I gave him a C, and that's exactly what I did with Britt. He only, like you said, only had 79 snaps, right? 70 something snaps.
I 73 is what I have in my notes.
73 snaps. He had 25 total tackles. So that's averaging a tackle every 3 snaps, which isn't terrible, especially for a fifth rounder. But the lack of volume to see if he can maintain that is what's keeping me at a C for him.
Yeah, I won't go any higher, won't go any lower. I'll just lock it the C as well.
Um,
We'll just get this one out of the way real quick.
Chris Wilcox been on four practice squads in 2 years. I've got that as a pretty easy F. I don't care that he was a seventh rounder. He was drafted before Presley Harvin. Um,
Yeah.
so you know, I don't care if you don't need a punter. Take Harvin anyways. And then we've got Mr. Irrelevant. Last up, Grant Stewart. If you do have any input on Chris Wilcox that you want to say,
No, Grant Stewart. He's not on the team anymore, and he was traded before the conclusion of his second year. It's hard to not give him an F, but in 26 snaps for the Bucks, he managed to force a fumble, and for that, I'm thinking D minus.
so I had a B on him actually, um, because
Explain this.
he was Mr. Irrelevant. That's the first thing. Last pick of the draft. It doesn't matter who it is, but Mr. Irrelevant managed to force a fumble and put up more tackles than KJ Britt. And those three things, I'm not going to give him anything lower than like a D plus. Um, like I mean, he was traded with a seventh round pick for a sixth round pick, um, which is
Hey, moving on up.
cool.
That's 2 sevens for 6.
Yeah,
That's improvement.
get yourself a sixth rounder, but um, I'll go D plus on him is the lowest I think I'd go.
Yeah, I'll meet you. I'll meet you halfway there, I guess, since you've decided to give the weight of Mr. Irrelevant such high praise.
And then overall for the Bucks, with their final grade, I had them at a C. They only had one real like what I would consider a home run pick, and that was Robert Hainsey. And then they had a couple of head scratchers in the later rounds. They didn't have that many picks, only seven of them, um, which that's the standard number for teams, but a lot of them managed to have more than that. So, uh,
I.e., the Panthers,
yeah,
who
yeah,
are
can't wait to
coming up
get to them
shortly.
next.
Um, they my final grade for them was also a C, so I think that's just a nice safe line. We got Joe. He's got good value, good player. Liked him. Robert Hainsley was good, but moving down, it just gets worse. But top end talent is there, and you don't always expect the late round guys to produce and succeed. So I think a C is pretty as expected. You have the early hits, and then you have the late misses.
And I think that's how drafts are kind of supposed to go. I think this is the standard draft. Like if you think of a
Yeah,
draft, this is what it is. It's like you've got one guy in the top three rounds that's pretty solid, one guy that's pretty okay, and one that guy that's eh. And then you got some late round shots in the dark that didn't really pan out, but hey, he took players.
and
And
then you have Kyle Trask.
and then you also got to remember this is a Super Bowl winning team. They had the last pick of the first round, the last pick of the second round, and then the other picks are always really weird just because of compensatory picks. But
Trade and etc.
yeah, so I'm okay with the C on them, and I think that is it for the Bucks. All right, on to the Panthers now, and with the eighth pick, they took J.C. Horn, who is very notably picked one selection before Pat Surtain. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. J.C. Horn's amazing. He's an amazing corner. He really
JC
is.
Horn is like uh he's Sauce Gardner, but unhealthy.
He's a top
Um
five corner when he's on the field, and he's on the field
yeah.
about 50% of the time.
Yeah, he's a really injured Sauce Gardner every I won't tout Sauce Gardner I won't throw that compliment around, but I think JC Horn is definitely really, really good.
He's
And
I don't know if I would compare him to Sauce Gardner, who I personally
no,
think
like
is like top two, not two. But when healthy, when playing, I think he can easily be top five. Um,
yeah.
so
And especially like just with his age too. Like he's only gonna get better. Hopefully he only gets healthier. Um, but yeah, right now it's hard to give him a lot of praise because he is so rarely on the field. It's 16 games that he started, right? Something along
I
those
think it's
lines.
something like that. It's not even a full season's worth of games, which
Yeah,
for like
16 games career. And so
yeah,
when you're grading everyone's first 2 years, you only have 1 year to go off of, and the rest is injury.
yeah.
You
One
have
the biggest knock is definitely injury, and it's tough to give him like an A plus grade, even though when on the field he is an A plus player. Um,
mhm,
but uh, I think so. I had him graded as an A plus, but the injury thing is tough to still justify that looking
yeah.
back on it. Um,
And I had it as a B minus, but looking now, I way too hard weighed the fact of his injury and less the play. So I'll move that up. We can go A minus, B plus, up to you.
I'm thinking B plus. I would love to say A minus, but I feel like reserving the A's for the like all star studs is the way
Cream
to
of the
go.
crop, yeah.
Um, you know, maybe not so much with Robert Hainsey earlier, but
Mhm.
you know he is very good, and J.C. Horn is also very good. And if he, I think this season is the make or break for him. If he has another injury this
Yeah.
season, I think we'll be like, okay, now it's time to
Or
start thinking, is it time to
yeah,
move
it's
on
time
from
to think
him?
about like, oh, what could have been, as opposed to like, just give him a chance, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was two separate injuries. It was a broken arm or wrist in year one and a foot injury in year two.
I think foot injury came first. I think ankle was year one for J.C. Horn. Foot fracture rookie year.
Yeah, foot fracture, and then he missed a couple games with I think it was an arm injury or a wrist injury this past season. Um, but yeah, so the fact that it's two different injuries is always a good sign where it's not like okay you're weak
It's
at
a
this.
problem with this joint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just unlucky. It's kind of like the Saquon thing where Saquon isn't flimsy, but he just so happens to be a tough runner and gets injured often. CMC as well. Um,
hmm Yeah. B plus for him. Lock that in.
mhm.
Moving forward, we have in the second round, Terrence Marshall Jr. picked at 59. He's a wide receiver that's played on a team that hasn't had much to look forward to in terms of passing game. I'm a big believer in him, so I'm going to vehemently defend a C for him from everyone. He's not great. He's not bad. He's been not a top option on a not top passing offense, and it's hard to grade him with people like people in this class of Waddle and uh, I'm Jamar Chase,
Devontae Smith
just
as
blanking
well. Yeah,
Elijah Moore, like just all these other wide
give
receivers.
give or take an Elijah
Like,
Moore, but
yeah,
yeah,
give or take on Elijah Moore, but it's still hard because you can like Elijah Moore is more comparable, where it's not a good passing offense. At least that's what they are hoping to stop. Looking forward,
I mean
their
he's on the
runners.
Browns now, but yeah,
Oh, is he?
yeah, he got traded.
Oh, damn.
But
Oh,
anywho, yeah, so
yeah,
not a great situation for Terrace to be in, but moving forward, as I've done most of the time, I'll look ahead a little bit and I'll say, look, he may not be this, all-star caliber receiver yet, but he's getting thrust in a situation where he needs to produce because he is the wide receiver two in that offense behind Adam Thielen. I thoroughly believe that Thielen is the one um, after losing DJ Moore. And I think that with Bryce Young, I think the Panthers are going to want to look to more of a passing offense. And especially with the loss of CMC last year in a trade, I think it'll be definitely more heavily focused on passing. So, new quarterback, very good at passing. New kind of team, semi-new team, um, with some moves in the wide receiver room with DJ Moore, and so going forward, I think he can be good. It's just a matter of will he. But yeah,
yeah, and it's interesting because it's not even Terrence Marshall isn't moving up. He's not going to be the wide receiver one or two. I don't think DJ Chark
oh shit, they
went
got
there in free
Chark too.
agency. I don't imagine DJ Chark's going to be there third. Yeah. Hey, Lions. Um, I liked Chark on the Lions, and I'm sad we didn't get him back. But I think that Terrence isn't better than him. Um, so he's still going to be playing that like third option slot, and I don't see him like getting much better the next 2 years. But with a better quarterback, he's going to just get naturally better. He's
Yeah,
not going to take the step because he's going up the depth chart. He's going to get better because he's Bryce Young, and that's um,
a little better than
we'll
Sam
see how
Darnold,
that
Andy Dalton.
pans out. We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, this is true.
Uh,
It's all
Maybe not better
speculation
than
right now.
PJ Walker,
Yeah,
but
talking about greatest quarterback of all time. All right. Well,
yeah,
now we move on. I think we're both good with a C on Terrace. Hopefully he'll
thank-
get better in a future look back at this draft. Maybe we'll be a little bit more favorable. Give him an A. But um, next up is Brady Christensen, who I liked. But again, reiterating that we have changed our method a little bit when it came to grading just everybody over time. Um, so I'm gonna look back at what I looked at the time and see that wow, I graded him too highly.
Was he drafted as a tackle, as a center? What was?
His
I
draft
don't know where he
position,
drafted at.
he was drafted as just O lineman. Um,
I think he played tackle mainly, and then they got Aiko McQuana, and then moved him
he's a guard
firmly
now.
to the inside.
So
Yeah, firmly left guard.
just looking at his PFF grade and this past season as a guard, he played under 1,000 snaps, but just under. So he was the starter for the full year. Um, had 11
Mm-hmm.
penalties and allowed 2 sacks. And then his PFF grade was a 57.3. Um,
On PFF, what's the ranking for those penalties at
fourth,
guard?
fourth.
Yeah,
Um,
quite high.
so very high. In my notes, I said he started all 17 games this past season, allowed 2 sacks, however, flagged 11 times. For a third round pick, getting 17 starts out of him is nice, but the penalties are a little bit tough to look at.
Yeah,
Um, I had him at a B. I'm probably going to be down to like a C on him.
yeah. I had him originally at a C, and that was really just that wasn't even considering the penalties, as I didn't make any note of it, but I would move to C minus. But it's a third round pick, so there wasn't much weight behind it, and you're getting an old lineman that was kind of just good depth piece first year, full starter second. So there's still that like space, time, and development he can have.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with just locking him at a C.
All right. And then next up, we're taking a look at Tommy Tremble.
Damn, man,
So for
this
some
is
background, brief background, real quick. We had a Madden 22 franchise that lasted a very long time, in which he took the Panthers and I took the
Tommy
Falcons,
Tremble was a
and Tommy Tremble was an
yeah,
absolute staple. He was a stud in that franchise.
Hall of Famer easily. He
So
was yeah.
so it's tough
This
to
is a
look
little
back and see
heartbreaking.
his real life stats. Um,
Yes, it's,
but
it's a little yeah.
he
Let's just say that it's not great.
no, it's not. And he is now the third string tight end. He's behind Hayden Hurst and Ian Thomas. Um,
Oh,
as a third round pick at a position that is normally picked in rounds 2 to 3, you don't see. I mean, obviously you got Kyle Pitts, and sometimes you'll have
yeah.
these top end guys, but most of the time you'll see them go in rounds 2 to 3, and those are your starters and those are your better players.
Mhm.
Um, and to see that and then see him be the third stringer and not be very good, I was at a D on him.
Yeah, I went D minus because he averages one catch and 11 yards a game, and that's not like, oh, I was the backup and I started a couple games. No, that was
11
you're
starts.
there. Yeah, that's you're on the field. You're seeing the field every game, and that's the amount of production he's getting. And I mean, he's got that red zone production, I guess, with those 4 TDs, but
And he's got
all
more
tight
touchdowns
ends
than
do.
Kyle Pitts, you know.
Oh, you're right. The fucking A plus.
No, I'm
um,
good with a D on him.
okay,
And then moving
I'll,
swiftly
I'll.
along, uh, this is also your boy.
Ooh, heck yeah, it is. We got some Chuba Hubbard. Um, he was drafted 126 in the fourth round. I also he didn't get a lot of love on my Panthers, but this isn't my Panthers. This is real life now.
Yeah,
He's gonna be a career backup. I think it's pretty safe to say.
I
As long
think
as he's a Panther, he's gonna be a backup. He might get to sneak into some starting roles later in his years, but
just as a clarifying statement, I don't think that career backup in at least in my notes, I didn't have career backup as a negative term. I had it as like
yeah, no,
he's not good enough
that's
to be the one, but he will for sure be the two on any team that he's on.
mhm. It's not so much an insult as much as like I mean he's the fourth round. If I said he was a career backup and he was a pick 16, that'd be saying something.
Yeah,
But he's a late day three starts. Yeah, he's a 33 pick and you know he's been there to take the spot during injuries for CMC. Um, I think the most interesting fact is how he played once CMC was traded, because he really didn't. He was still kind of running back too.
Yep. And it was to Deontay Foreman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
He
It's
so
certainly interesting.
in my notes about him, I had that he only averaged 3.6 yards a carry on a good amount of attempts his rookie year because of CMC's injury. Um,
Hmm.
and then he was given less attempts after CMC got traded, but he was more efficient. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry in his second year. And I think that with Miles Sanders joining this team, he'll probably stay in a very similar role to what he did after CMC
Yeah.
left. Um, and if he can come in for 5 6 carries a game, give him 5 yards a carry on those few carries,
Hmm.
I think that's not exactly what they're hoping for out of the fourth round, obviously, but I think that's solid.
Yeah.
And I did give him a C. I was a
Yeah.
little nicer than with
I
Tyler
went with the
Triple.
C for him as well. Because he is that number two guy. Because they got Miles Sanders, and he's going to be number two to him. He was number two to Deontay. He was number two to CMC. He's a consistent, and he produces at the number two spot for them, the relief back. And so, and he, it's not a big part of his game, but I think he's decent at being a receiving back as well. So he plays that kind of,
Third
he
down back
teeters that like
almost
double
role.
threat. Yeah, he can come in at any down and
Yeah,
any formation, and it doesn't like, oh, they're gonna run a power run. He's a good secondary back because he just gets the relief on whenever that's needed. And so I gave him that C as well.
okay. Moving on to the fifth round, pick 158, we got Davion Nixon. Um, he's he hasn't put up that many stats. 15 career tackles, no other meaningful stats. Um, and you can blame lack of opportunity, but on a team like the Panthers, where their defensive line and especially the interior D line isn't something that's generally revered as like top tier, it's
Hmm.
it's a bad look to not have the starts and not have the playing time, even if it can just be kind of like you can be like, well, if he had the starts, it's like, yeah, but why didn't he? And if you're an edge
Yeah.
rusher on the 49ers, it's like, well, he didn't because Nick Bosa, and it's like, okay, that's fair. But when you're an interior D lineman on the Panthers,
Yeah.
you
You
can't.
don't have like, suffice to say, he has 144 snaps career, and that's not it's not a whole lot. And I think I gave him a D flat.
Me too.
Um, I think for those 140 like snaps, he only has the four pressures. You're not really looking for pressure at the D tackle, but he also doesn't have any of the TFLs or
Yeah, no,
anything else to show for it. So
you're right.
I think a D flat is just where he sits.
Next up, still in the fifth round, pick 166, we got Keith Taylor. He's a DB. I in the notes, apparently 5 career starts, 6 passes broken up, solid. But he has also
Yeah.
let up over 70% of his targets. He's let those be completed.
Hmm.
Um, Lack of starting experience can be a factor, um, and a fair amount of tackles. Let me pull up his actual page and see how many a fair amount of tackles are.
What you decided was a fair amount.
Uh,
Um,
yeah,
well, while you
67 overall total for his 2 seasons. Uh,
not too bad.
he's
He
kind
does
of
have the 850 snaps,
he's
so
played in every game.
it's not a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah. He's available. He's solid. He has the 3 passes defended each year. He's got a forced fumble. Um, he's got a couple fumble recovers. Like he's a plug and play guy, and that's
Yeah.
in the
He's
fifth round.
he's
And it's,
he's generally in around like 30% of their snaps, and I'm not sure if that's like, oh, he comes in for nickel or anything like that because I'm just reading the stat lines. But um, he's not good. He's not bad. He allows a lot, but I think that it seems like the Panthers are just going to be the team that we just keep grading a C for
yeah,
each player.
I had a
But
straight
that's
C on him
again
too.
what I gave him because yeah, he's good. He's 100% healthy. He sees the field often.
Yeah, we're good
We're
on a
both
C
good
on
on
him.
having C's go.
And then
Okay.
next up, next round, sixth round, the Panthers had a lot of picks, by the way. This was a an annoyance to
Oh yeah.
grade, to say the least. We got Deontay Brown, the O lineman. Um, my notes for him are that he's mainly a practice squad member, played in 3 games his rookie season, logged 30 snaps, and uh, he didn't let up a sack. He took 30 snaps, so I'm not giving him that much credit for that.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, he was cut.
He was cut. I completely missed the fact that he was released and signed to the practice squad and then a future deal, which basically means he's just going to be a practice squatter. Um,
Yeah.
I had a D on him. I'm moving that down to an F though because of that. So
Yeah. Moving forward, we have Shee Smith. Okay. Second wide receiver that I will heavily defend
okay,
this class.
you you
How do
may
you feel?
you may convince me to bring my grade up on him. Um, basically, I just said 6 starts, but he has played in 23 games, only 54% catch rate, but he has 400 yards, 2 touchdowns over his first 2 years. Not crazy, but for a sixth rounder, not bad. And then he may get additional opportunities with the new offense and um, what's it called? New offense and new quarterback.
Yeah. And new coaches.
That's that too.
So in year two, he he's about 50% of the snaps. He's had that like growing role, and he's been a return man. And he's a 6 round player. You get him to be on the field as a period as a return man, kind of versatile. And then also he has a banger name, so he gets to be Jesus. That's basically my understanding of that.
I gave him a C.
That's the way I put it.
I gave him a C just because he's put up basically the same numbers as Terrace Marshall, maybe slightly worse, and I gave Terrace a C. So I feel like the value may be a little bit better, so I could see a C plus, but I don't really see myself going up too much further than that.
You have Terrence Marshall, and in the like first year he has 138 yards. She is just under that with like 108, 104. And then second year they get actual separation between them two in terms of like yardage and um, production on the field, where she only had 300 yards, and then Terrence actually got up to almost 500. But when you compare their and they're so similar, and one's a 6 round pick and one's a 2nd round pick, we either got to move Terrence Marshall down, or we have to give Shee Smith at least a B minus, because that's where I'm sitting right now with Shee Smith.
I'm see, I agree with you that we should move one of them down and one of them up. I think we bump Terrace down to a C minus and she up or she to a C plus, just because I feel like they're still in that same tier of player, but one was more favorably selected in a more favorable round.
You got it. I'll take that.
Cool.
Another thing is like she may have been a punt returner, but he wasn't like an especially good one. He only averaged like six a return. But then again, when was the Panthers as good at anything last year? So
Onto a long snapper taken in the 6th round, Thomas Fletcher. This is the easiest F I've ever given. He has not played a snap
yes,
in the NFL. He was waived before his sophomore season after being injured for his rookie year. He is an XFL
yeah, he
player
got
as
injured.
of
He
right
went to surgery and got cut.
and now he's playing in the XFL. Phil Hoskins in the 7th round. I said he did have a sack in his rookie season, and then got moved to the practice squad and signed by the Chiefs. I had a D minus on him. The only reason he wasn't an F is because he got that sack.
Yeah, he actually played in games for them. It wasn't like, oh, I'm practice squad, now I'm gone.
Mhm.
And he actually got, he had his 74 snaps. He got that for it. I'll give him some credit. Go Chiefs.
More sacks than Davion
So
Nixon, I will say.
damn. All right, so here's a group that we have. Let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 C's. Some teams didn't draft 5 players, so I think just a flat C might be fitting. We also could go C minus for them.
I'm at C
All
minus.
right,
I was at C minus
that's
when
what I was at, but I wasn't sure.
I was at C minus with JC Horn as an A plus. That's how low I was on them. And now
Yeah,
looking back, it's you said five players at a C grade and
yeah.
three at a D and two at an F
Hmm.
and the one player at a B plus. I'd even go so far as to say they could be D plus, and I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah. Mm, yeah, I'll go D plus because JC Horn's just so good, but like he's played one set of game, like one season set of games
Yeah.
for 2 years.
Yep.
Um, I do like. Here's the little notes I have on their full grade. Panthers are a bad team, and they've been that way for a few years. And somehow, in the draft class, adding, you got 11 players they added to a team that's not very good, and you still couldn't come away with starters,
Yeah.
with long-term, like good players to be starting for your team. So I really like uh JC, but I think the fact that they had like a terrible day 3 draft, um, he kind of counterbalances that. So they'll be at a D minus or D plus,
Yep.
uh, due to that.
Yeah, D grade overall, and then just plus because JC Horn was a good pick, and even that, like,
Yeah.
you take Pat Surtain and it's a better grade. But um,
Yes.
I said in my final notes about it, I said JC Horn was a good pick, but the rest of this draft is ugly. No difference players, a couple players that aren't necessarily busts yet. Um, and then my main takeaway is this team is not ready to be graded yet. This year is going to be the make or break year for a lot of the players. With a new offense, new head
Hmm.
coach, new quarterback, like everything's different. So
Yeah.
um, I think this is going to be the the year for them. And if they can't succeed after this year, then
Yeah.
then they get a
It's
bad
safe to
grade.
call it pretty bad. Yeah. Which D plus is already bad, but they would probably drop off to being F plus D minus level.
F plus.
Um,
Man, they failed. They
that's
did a
just
little better than some
insulting.
others. They failed, but
Yeah.
they drafted.
All right, we'll move forward to the Saints draft here. Uh, they got Peyton Turner, at the end of the first round.
Yeah, they
How do you
sure
feel
did.
about
They sure did get a player at the end of the first round.
it?
Um,
It definitely drafted someone.
so I these less than 30 total tackles and only six total QB hits um, through two seasons out of a first rounder. And look, he's only appeared in 13 games. I didn't look into the injury history. I really don't know if it's because of
Yeah.
injury, but man, like, come on. Come
Now, so I considered this a pretty mid D end class from like strictly D end, not like outside linebackers,
on.
not like
Not
Mike
Mike Parsons.
Parsons and his ability to play that
Yeah.
role. Just strictly like people listed at D end going into the draft. It's not a it's not the like prettiest list.
No,
I mean, we got Peyton Turner,
there's
we got
no
Adafe Owe.
there's no top end talent that
Yeah,
like is in normal draft classes. And Micah Parsons is that top end talent, but he also plays off ball sometimes, so he's not a strict D end. And I
yeah,
know going into the season he's going to be a strict D end, but out of the draft he wasn't. So you
mhm,
have Quiddy Pay. I think he was technically a D end. He's listed as D line, but I'm pretty sure
yeah.
his main
And
position was D end.
he's the end.
And then Peyton Turner, Greg Russo, and Odafe Owe. And Greg Russo, I think, might take some snaps inside as well. Um, and outside of that,
There's no. It's a pretty weak class when you compare it to everything else that this class had
yeah,
loads of. It's pretty weak. He's not the best. I'd say. I gave him a C because,
okay, you
but
were more generous than I was.
I could lean lower because it is a first round pick.
That's
Graded it
exactly
mainly off of like here's the people you could have gotten at D end. And so if they were like, oh, we need to get a D end, here's the list. Could you say that he's the worst one on the list? No. Could you say he's the best one? No. They're all just kind of like interminglable.
in
And
my so my opinion on it is that they took Peyton Turner, they took a D end. Why did you want the D end? Did you want sack numbers? Did you want run stopping? There are better
yeah.
options at both.
Hmm.
And maybe he splits the middle nicely for them, and that's what they like about it. But I just don't see the value as much as I think the Saints did when
especially
they
with
picked him.
the few, very few like snaps he has. He has 300 snaps, and that's over 2 years. It's why get him in the first round if there's not an intention of using him and trying to integrate him heavily into the like plays.
And especially when you can take better players,
Yeah,
you could have taken if you wanted a running back. I mean, you have Alvin Kamara, so you're not going to take running back. But Javon Holland, very good player, Miami safety. Christian Barmore, if you wanted an interior D lineman, um, he's solid.
which they do have good linemen or
And like
base.
I'm just scrolling down the list and like Asante Samuel Jr. was
But
still on the board. If you want a DB, take him. Aziz Ojulari,
yeah,
if you want an
it's
outside linebacker that's not Joe Tryon, um, then you know like
like there's so much to be done here that's
yeah,
not Payton Turner.
yeah,
So I'm good to move my grade down. Move
okay.
C. We could go D plus, C minus. Up to you.
I'll go D plus because I had him at a D, so I'll end
Yeah.
up on the lower end. Pete Werner though, very good player picked at the end of the second round.
Yes.
Couple picks after Nick Bolton, and it's not this isn't the case of like oh they missed out on Bolton and they got stuck with Werner or man the Chiefs took this guy ahead of this. They're both good, both very good players.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
and he has 142 tackles in only 19 starts and only one fewer TFL than Peyton Turner, and he's an off-ball linebacker, not a DN.
Yeah. So I have him graded at a B. Now this was one of my earlier grades here. Um, I wasn't super well versed in how I was planning on grading linebackers, but I have him just at a B. So how did you feel about him?
I had him at an A because he's made the difference. He's gotten the starts, he's gotten the play time, he's gotten the stats. Like he's done everything you could want out of a linebacker, I think, and that's why like position value is definitely there in the second round. Linebackers are typically
Yeah,
like a
linebackers.
late first to early secondish type pick, and if you're getting a guy like this in the late second, you're doing great. Um, and I think that he's he can be the captain of that defense. And I mean, obviously you got Lattimore, and he's probably the captain, but uh, he's a future stud for sure. I would like to stick at A just because he's proved it. He's very good.
So I'll stick to an A. I won't like just make it a B plus, but I'm feeling more A minus just because of the I have a scarcity on the A's and the A pluses.
That's
So
fair.
if you're feeling sure on the A, we'll go to A. But if you're feeling like an A minus is still applicable,
A
then we'll
minus is
go.
fine. I just didn't
We'll
want to
go
like.
A.
I just
Okay.
want him to have that letter. You know, like that. Good
Yeah.
job, bud. Letter. Because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
for
That
just
pat
a
on the back and you've done.
all right. So into the third round, pick 76. We got Paulson Adebo. Um, you want to take it away after that?
Yeah. So I my notes on him are interesting because I made note of the fact that in year two, he led the corners in tackling, which is an interesting thing because is that just like, oh, we're running the ball to his side a lot. We think he's a worse, you know, um, run support corner. It's interesting on what kind of offensive thinking would lead to him getting the most tackles, or it could just be, oh, he flies around the fucking field and he's that guy.
And yeah, and again to reiterate, we did not watch film for every single one of these
Yeah,
players. So looking at the stat sheet, he did have a lot of tackles, and um, I actually didn't even reference his tackles at all, which probably was a mistake from me. Because yeah, I definitely should have. Damn, 6 TFLs over 2 years. He's started in
yeah,
just about every game he's been available, except for one of
yeah.
them this
and
past
and
season.
that one he played a lot of snaps in. I just believe he wasn't listed as the starter, and he actually no. So he was just not a starter. He must have been still nursing that injury. They only gave him 9 snaps that game. But point stands, there was the one game out of all of them that he's been fully healthy and he played in.
You know, I'm realizing that I graded him too low. So those 8 passes defended is really nice. His rookie season 7, his second year, and that mean that even though that number went down, he got better because he did
Yeah,
that in a fraction of the games. Obviously, you don't have the interception numbers from year 1 to 2, but
yeah,
interceptions are not a cornerback stat 90% of the time. It
yeah,
just like obviously you've got your ball hawks that will find their way to the ball no matter what, but
You got your dudes, but
nine times out of 10, it's QBs making bad decisions that lead to picks. So,
yeah,
um,
or tipped or batted,
yeah,
just things that aren't always in control of. Oh, I covered this really well.
yeah. Interception
Um,
stats are not what to look at. Passes defended are definitely what to look at because that means you're playing the receiver well. You're sticking to your man, and that's a good look. And his tackle numbers didn't even drop off a lot from year 1 to 2. The only thing that did was TFLs,
mhm.
which missing 5 games or missing 4 games, 5 starts from year 1 to 2, and losing out on 2 TFLs. That's a good trade off. That's a reasonable
That
trade off.
yeah, and my main thing with him is that his like catch percentage, his like TDs allowed, those are a little higher for me.
That is something
Um,
that I mentioned. I think 60%, over
yeah,
60% of his targets were allowed. 11
yes,
touchdowns across both years.
it's something worrying, and but he's got so much going in terms of everything else, and so it's hard to like pick that and be like, oh, he's a D, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I graded him at a C. I'm likely to get him more, but I'd catch
So
percent, so it's keeping me down on him.
I had him at a C plus, and I'm thinking about a B minus. Is what I'm where I'm at because I think that
Okay.
he's definitely got the talent.
Yeah, I was also thinking moving into the Bs. He's especially when you think third round like player. He's played nearly every snap possible. And that's just something that's like it's valuable. What's the old motto? The
Best ability is
availability is the best
availability.
ability.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's got that ability. So
yeah. For the most part, he missed a few games, but
yeah,
yeah,
he missed a few games, but he in the third round playing corner and doing pretty good job at it, making sure he makes all the tackles. He's a good player. I'll give that B minus to him.
okay. Um,
Speaking of good players, we can now
Speaking of
move
great
to a
players,
very not good
no, no,
player.
no. Thumbnail athlete himself, Ian Book, easiest A plus I've ever given. We can move on. No, okay.
Yeah, that
Ian Book,
2.2 QBR.
no jokes anymore. Ian Book's an F. He has a 0 to 2 touchdown to interception ratio. He's not on the team anymore. Even in the 4th round, huge bust. Um,
Yeah,
the
I'm shocked
Saints,
he even got picked up by anyone.
yeah. So the Saints, they had Jameis, right? They have Andy Dalton, or had Andy Dalton. Those two are not
Yeah,
solid
Taysom Hill,
starters.
come on, man.
They're not solid starters. They're not like, okay, this is our guy. We're sticking with him forever. We're gonna
Yeah,
sign him to long deals, whatever. That's not them. So if you're not able
they're
to compete
bridges.
with that, and you're gonna get dropped
Yeah,
by a team that has that,
F minus if possible. Why is this a fourth round pick? You know, like
on to the 6th round, pick 206, Landon Young, offensive tackle. Um, I have him at a D. I need to pull up his start numbers or his snap numbers because I just said not many starts or snaps. Um,
oh man, if
and that
you
is
want to
very
talk
true.
about giving Landon Young and not very many motes, I can agree to that because I said he started 3 games.
Ah, okay. So I
That's the
also
extent.
I used the word measly in my notes. So I said not many starts or snaps, a measly 40 PFF grade when he did get snaps. Um,
Yeah,
Again, I've given him the bump up
benefit
from
of the
F
doubt.
because he's still on the team, but that bump up stops at D. Um,
Yeah, D flat. I'll
D
take it.
flat. And then round 7, pick 255, wide receiver
Yeah.
Kawan Baker. Um, he's an F. He has no starts, 2 games played, 27 snaps, all special teams. He is still with the Saints, but he has not been with them his whole time. He was all right. Get a pen and paper to keep track of where he's been.
No, I have it tracked down, but you can go and read it out to them.
Waived in his rookie year, signed and released from the Packers and Eagles practice squads before signing with the Saints practice squad, and is on what is the reserve futures contract, basically still on the practice
A
squad.
practice squad. Yeah.
Um, so for the Saints' final grade, I had them at a C. I in my notes I said they're lucky to get a C because Pete Werner played solid football. The rest of the class is a disaster. Obviously, we've determined that Paulson Adebo is not a disaster,
Yes.
but I think the grade C still stands.
I originally had a C minus, but I'll move it up to a C because of you convincing me on Pete Warner. I
It's a
said
baller.
Warner. Warner, close enough.
Warner, it's the
Um,
same shit.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Pete,
I
if you're
they
watching.
missed Sorry, Pete. We didn't mean to offend.
Sorry, Pete. Big
Um,
fans.
we didn't. They didn't hit on anything in their later rounds, and they had to miss in the first round. But Paulson and Pete, they pulled it down.
Yeah.
So,
Um, obviously, you don't have to hit on every pick, but missing in the first round is always going to take a draft grade and just tank it. Um,
yeah,
just because that first round is the draft for a lot of people. Like, obviously, the depth guys get a lot more play time and a lot more publicity in the NFL than they would in like the NBA or something. But still, a lot of people watch the first round, and after that first round's over, they just lose it. So, alrighty, and that was the NFC South. So just a little recap: we had the Falcons at a B, picks like Kyle Pitts and Richie Grant, Drew Dalman, Adetokunbo Ogundeji helped them out. Those were their better picks. Darren Hall as well in there at a B or so. Um, and then the Bucks had a C draft grade. They had Joe Tryon Shoyinka in the first round, Robert Hainsey. Those were their highlights. Um, and then we had the Panthers at a D plus, even with their
yeah.
plethora of
J.C.
picks.
Horn's the only thing to hold it down. Then everything else that we graded, it was really just us being really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, looking ahead for their new regime. But J.C. Horn held it down for them to even be able to get a D plus.
Yep, and that was literally their only grade above a C was J.C. Horn.
Yeah,
And looking into the future can be easy, but we don't know what's going to
we
happen.
don't
So.
have crystal balls. Yeah, we don't know what's gonna go down. And then we have the Saints, who they come up with a C. They didn't draft as much as the Panthers did. Not as many players, not as many picks to miss on like the Panthers. They luckily had Pete Werner and Austin Adebo to hold them down, but the rest of them are pretty much misses or near misses by now. It's hard to say that they're gonna come back and earn their worth back.
Hey man,
So
just
that's why they're saying that that's
you just wait 2 years down the road when Ian Book's a free agent. He's gonna come back. He's gonna lead the Saints to a Super Bowl. All right,
Super Bowl book.
Super Bowl book. Um, yeah, that was the NFC South. Overall, weak draft classes. I think if we had to grade the division, it would be a C, and it would be heavily weighted
Yeah,
down by the
yeah, by
Panthers.
a lot of them.
By a lot
Hey,
of
we're not calling
Panthers.
them out. We're not calling out their name.
Hey man, there's a lot
Um,
of Panthers on this list.
yeah.
All right, thanks guys.